we always talk about opposites.
Yeah.
Black and white, up and down,
Yeah.
love and hate. But like, what if I told you those are really just two sides of the same coin?
Right.
That's what we're looking at today, the principle of polarity. Basically, everything has an opposite, and they're connected.
Absolutely. And we're not just making this up. We're going deep into the Kybalion today.
Oh, cool.
And it says, get this, everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like, and unlike Backley are the same, opposites are identical in nature but different in degree. Extremes meet.
So wait, hold on. What does that even mean?
Well, think of it this way.
Okay.
Opposites, right? They're not totally different things, just different levels of the same thing.
Okay, I think I get it.
Yeah.
But like, how does this help me in my everyday life?
That's what we're here to find out. How can knowing that everything has an opposite actually give you some useful insight?
Right. Like some real world stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So you can handle all those situations that seem totally contradictory and maybe find a bit more balance,
Totally.
So the Kybalion tells us that everything has these two sides or two poles. Imagine it's like a spectrum.
Right.
And on that spectrum, you have all those shades in between the extremes. So those things that look like total opposites, they're actually just different spots on the same line.
So it's not that you have two separate things.
Exactly.
It's more like different like intensities.
Yeah, or expressions of the same energy.
Can you give us an example, to make it super clear?
Of course.
Yeah.
Let's take something everyone knows, heat and cold.
Okay, yeah.
They seem like total opposites, right? But the Kybalion says they're just different degrees of temperature. Think of a thermometer. One end is freezing, the other is boiling.
Right.
But it's all just measuring how much heat energy there is. There's no line where heat suddenly becomes cold.
That's a good way to put it. Like the difference between, say, simmering and boiling water, right?
Exactly. It's just a few degrees.
Okay.
What about directions? Think about east and west.
Okay.
They seem opposite, right? But if you keep going east, guess what?
You end up back where you started.
Well, yeah, but you're also going west compared to where you began.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Same with north and south, especially when you think of Earth as a sphere.
Right, right.
What about light and dark? It's not just on or off, right?
Right.
You have bright sunlight, the dim evening light, then pitch black, all just different amounts of light.
So it's all about these gradual changes on a shared scale.
You got it.
But this can't just be about the physical world, right?
Oh, absolutely not. It's about our thoughts and ideas, too.
Okay, so like, how does this apply to, say, emotions?
Let's talk about love and hate. Big ones, right?
Huge.
We often see them as totally opposite. But this principle says they're on the same spectrum.
Yeah.
You can have crazy love.
Yeah.
Then maybe it fades into just liking someone, then not caring, then maybe you dislike them, and then boom, hate.
So it's not a sudden jump. It's more like
A gradient.
Yeah, exactly. So you're saying it's possible to go from one to the other because they're connected.
Exactly. And think about courage and fear. Or being positive and negative. They're not separate things, just different sides of the same mental state.
Yeah.
Even big ideas like spirit and matter, or as the Kybalion calls it, the Aal and the many.
Okay.
It suggests they're both expressions of one big reality, just expressed differently.
That's deep. So even things like good and bad aren't set in stone.
That's what it sounds like. The Kybalion suggests good and bad are labels we put on things depending on the situation.
So what's good in one situation?
And it might not be so good in another. It's all relative.
I like that.
Like noise and quiet, it's all a scale, right?
Yeah.
Hard and soft, sharp and dull, different degrees of the same thing.
Okay, this is making me rethink how I see things. But how does knowing this actually help me in everyday life?
One big way is it can help you turn negativity into positivity. If you realize they're just different ends of the same spectrum, you can try to shift your thinking towards the positive.
So like instead of freaking out about a bad situation.
You look for the good or the potential for something good.
Yeah, I get it.
You can reframe those challenges, see them not as like roadblocks, but as chances to grow.
So it's all about changing your perspective. Instead of seeing just the bad, you see the potential for something good to come out of it.
Exactly. And this applies to our feelings too.
Okay, how so?
We need to accept all our feelings, both the good and the bad. For example, fear isn't always bad.
Right. Sometimes it can keep you safe.
Exactly. But if it paralyzes you, remembering it's on the same spectrum as courage can help you find your bravery.
So it's about seeing the whole range of an emotion.
Exactly. Not just getting stuck at one end. What about when you face setbacks or failures?
Don't remind me.
Well, think about this. If you see failures as part of the same journey as success, it can really change how you think about it.
Guess yeah.
So instead of seeing failure as the end, you can see it as a step on the way to success.
So it's like they're both part of the learning process.
Exactly. They actually complete each other. It gives you a fuller understanding of how things work.
Okay, I'm with you. It's not about getting rid of the negative, but seeing how it connects to the positive and like using that to your advantage.
You got it. The Kybalion actually calls this the transmutation of mental states.
Transmutation, that's a big word.
Yeah, but it's a big idea. So when mental states are the same kind, like fear and courage,
Yeah.
you can actually change one into the other.
Really?
By changing its polarity, by raising or lowering your mental vibration.
Okay, hold on. Vibration, what does that even mean?
Think of it as the energy of your thoughts and feelings.
Oh, okay.
So, like, you can't turn love into, say, a car,
Right.
but you can definitely shift hate toward love by changing how you think and feel.
So you're not changing it into something totally different.
Yeah.
It's more like adjusting the intensity.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And this connects to the idea of mental influence, too.
Interesting.
The Kybalion suggests that minds can influence each other. It's called mental induction.
Right.
So if you cultivate a positive mental state, you might actually be able to influence others toward positivity, too.
So your good vibes can rub off on others.
Yeah, something like that.
That makes me think of a quote by Viktor Frankl. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom.
I love that quote.
So how does that space relate to what we're talking about, the principle of polarity?
I think Frankl's quote really nails a key part of understanding polarity.
Okay.
The space he's talking about, that's where awareness comes in. We have this knee-jerk reaction to things, right? And often that leans toward the negative, but that's not our only option.
So we have a choice.
Exactly. Understanding that there's a more positive response available on that same spectrum gives us the power to choose. I like that. When we choose to lean towards the positive, even when we're faced with negativity, that's where we can grow and become more free.
So the principle of polarity.
It shows us that there's another option.
So it's about developing that awareness. So we're not just reacting automatically to everything.
Exactly.
Instead, we can stop and think about where we want to be on that spectrum.
That's it. And this leads right into those key takeaways we saw in that insightful podcast episode we mentioned.
Oh, right. The first one was the power of awareness.
Exactly. You can't use this principle of polarity unless you're aware of your thoughts and feelings.
So just noticing them without judging them.
Right. That space, that's what Frankl was talking about.
Makes sense? And they said that meditation was a great tool for developing that awareness, right?
Right. It helps you tune in to those little changes in your mental and emotional state.
Mm-hmm.
So when you meditate, you notice when your mind wanders and you bring it back to the present moment.
Yeah.
It's like training your mind to see what's going on inside without getting swept away. And that's crucial for choosing where you want to be on any polarity.
Okay, I'm following. What about transmuting negative energy? What was that all about?
It's about making a conscious effort to focus on the positive stuff.
But not by ignoring the negative, right?
Exactly. It's more about raising your mental vibration.
So like focusing on gratitude and love.
Exactly. Those are the opposites of negativity.
Right.
And when you focus on them, you're basically changing your whole mental and emotional state.
So you're basically choosing to tune into a better frequency.
I like that. You're getting it.
So the message here is that we have a choice.
Exactly. Remember, the choice is yours.
Oh, yeah, from the podcast episode.
We're not just controlled by our emotions or our circumstances. We can choose, especially when we understand the principle of polarity and we're self-aware.
That leads to growth and freedom, right?
Absolutely. And to help you really understand this, let's go through that journal exercise they talked about.
Yeah, okay. That sounds useful.
So pick one part of your life where you've experienced what felt like opposite things.
Okay, like in relationships.
Yeah.
Like feeling really close to someone and then having a huge fight.
Exactly. Or maybe in your career, when you've had big wins but also big setbacks. Or even with your energy levels, like when you're super energized one day and then totally wiped out the next.
Okay, yeah. I have one in mind.
Great. Now, in your journal, write down those specific opposite experiences. So if you chose your career, maybe you'd write, got a big new client on one side and lost a huge project on the other. Be as specific as you can.
Got it.
Now, think about how each of these seemingly opposite experiences has actually affected your life. What did you learn from the good times?
Okay.
And what did you learn from the bad times? Did those setbacks make you tougher? Did the successes help you build skills or confidence?
That's a good question. I haven't really thought about how they both contributed.
It's easy to overlook that. Next, think about the big lessons you've learned from experiencing both sides of this polarity.
Okay.
How has going through all this changed how you see things or how you deal with similar situations now? What insights did you get from both the good and the bad?
I'm starting to see how this could show me some patterns I hadn't noticed before.
Exactly. It often does. But this is the most important part. Write down a plan for how you can use these insights in other parts of your life.
Mm.
So if you learned that dealing with career setbacks made you a better problem solver, how can you use that same approach in your relationships or with your health goals?
So take what you've learned in one area and apply it to other areas.
That's the idea.
I get it.
Remember that example journal entry they gave about career success and failure? The person realized that successes made them feel more confident and visible, but failures taught them to be adaptable and to keep going.
Right.
They realized both were important for growth in the long run, and their plan was to approach future challenges knowing that both success and failure could teach them valuable lessons.
That's a really helpful example. So if you're listening, I really encourage you to try this journal exercise. It can change how you see those opposing forces in your life and help you understand how they're connected.
Absolutely. It's about moving beyond thinking in terms of either,
Right.
It's about embracing the complexity of life.
So to wrap up our deep dive today, the principle of polarity shows us that things that seem totally opposite are actually connected.
That's it.
And when we understand this, when we become more aware, we gain the power to change our perspective, manage our emotions better, and make conscious choices about where we want to be on those spectrums.
That's the key.
It's about realizing that life isn't black and white. It's full of shades of gray. And that understanding gives us a lot of control.
I agree. It's about understanding that duality doesn't mean we have to eliminate one side.
Yeah.
It's about seeing how the two sides interact and learning from that.
Okay, one last thought for you to chew on. How could recognizing the subtle differences, that spectrum between any two opposite ideas, lead to more understanding and empathy when you interact with others?
That's a good one.
If we could really grasp that even totally opposing viewpoints might just be different points on the same spectrum of human experience, how would that change how we connect with and relate to people around us? Think about it. And join us next time for another insightful deep dive.